Stugotz here. You may have heard of a COO by the name of Dylan Miskowitz. He's a real business owner who struggled with finding the right fit for his director of coffee role until he turned to ZipRecruiter. Well, a lot has happened since he made his first hire with ZipRecruiter. His organic coffee business, Cafe Altura, grew. Cafe Altura's distribution increased, and they expanded their product offerings. Cafe Altura grew so much that Dylan had to hire a junior roaster and a second director of coffee. How? Once again, through ZipRecruiter. And now you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/Dan. While Dylan was busy managing his booming business and signing autographs, ZipRecruiter did the work for him. Its matching technology found people with the right skills and experience and actively invited them to apply. In fact, 4 to 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. See for yourself how ZipRecruiter makes hiring faster and easier, from coffee roaster to construction worker to CMO. To try ZipRecruiter for free, simple. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/Dan. That's ZipRecruiter.com/DAN. ZipRecruiter.com/Dan. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. The Dan Le Batard with Stugotz Show podcast is presented by Capital One. This is Banking Reimagined. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, making it easy to bundle your home and car insurance. Jeff Darlington is expected to join us in just a second here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. He's going to shock one of us. Hopefully it's not me. Here's your SportsCenter update. The NFL news will not stop, man. My goodness. The Saints have re-signed Drew Brees to a 2-year contract worth $50 million. The UFC will be postponing its next 3 events through April 11th. NASCAR will postpone all races through May the 3rd. And finally, Richard Lee, a New Hampshire police chief for nearly 20 years, was voted out from his position from a 3-member select board. He was told to immediately turn in his guns and uniform as well as the keys to his police cruiser. Lee took his police gear off before the board chairman, all the way down to his underwear and boots. He had no spare clothes or a ride home, so Lee walked a mile in 26-degree temperatures wearing nearly nothing before his wife picked him up. Where do you need a Blink security camera? On your porch to help protect deliveries? Helping keeping your family safe when you travel? How about alerting you when the kids get home from school? Where do you need Blink security cameras? Visit BlinkProtect.com/Dan. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
It is rare when our show jumps into news gathering mode.
This is crazy.
Tom Brady has left the Patriots after 20 years, and Jeff Darlington's been telling you, as Tom Brady's been saying pretty nonstop, nobody knows what they're talking about. Jeff Darlington has been telling you he'd be shocked and surprised if Brady returned, and now it's official. He's not returning, although we don't know where he's going. Right before we get to Jeff Darlington, though, and before we find out who he's going to shock and stun on our show now that he's won the bet, I need to point out to the audience and everyone involved that the number of times that Greg Cody gets totally lucky against the hard network out is staggering. I am trying to do this. We're trying to spin a bunch of plates here, okay? And I'm trying to coordinate with Bristol, and I panicked because Bristol said 5 seconds, and I knew I was going to get clipped if he stopped talking, and he stopped talking at exactly the right moment, and I'm just sort of staring straight ahead at Mike Ryan, who's furious with me and should be, but I didn't have room for a syllable there.
Wait a second. Why is Mike Ryan furious with you? Greg Cody, for the first time in his life, stuck the landing. I mean,
because he wanted me to talk. He just wanted me to talk, and I'm like, if I talk, I'm gonna get clipped by the hard network out.
Okay, so I was thinking, I heard the 5 second count. I was thinking around 15 seconds, 10 seconds before that, you had to cut him off and ask him, hey, what's coming up this week on the podcast? Anything. You just had to cut him off.
I know.
There. It is your fault.
All right.
So he's an armchair quarterback, even with the H&Os.
Everybody's a critic. All right. So Jeff Darlington, you're allowed to feel a little good about this, Jeff. I know you got a back and forth on Twitter, and some people are saying, hey, stop with the navel gazing, stop with the victory lap. But you got the story right, and it couldn't have felt good, right? We kept asking you, hey, this is informed, reported speculation. This is not just you speculating. It had to feel pretty lonely, even if you thought your information was good, to be out there on that story, right?
Yeah, it did. I mean, I feel like the Twitter thing. I feel uncomfortable doing that, but to a point, it feels good too. Yes, just more because Patriots fans are just so damn ruthless. I mean, just the and I take credibility seriously and all that, but who cares? I mean, it's just sports. I understand all that, but the funny thing to me is, like, I had one of my closest friends come to me and say about our previous bet about whether I would allow you guys to stun me if I was wrong. And one of my close friends came to me and said, are you really going to let Batard stun you? And I'm like, no, I'm going to be right. Like, I think nobody really believed that this was actually going to happen. And I guess I kind of understand that because it is so difficult to digest.
Jeff, do us a favor. I don't mind the gloating. Keep gloating. I want all journalists to continue to gloat when they get a story right. I think it's fantastic. Not journalistic, but my kind of journalism. What was that?
Yeah. Journalist flexing is not exactly like an intimidating thing, though. It's not.
But it's my kind of journalism. Put us there. Like, put Jeff Darlington's reaction besides the Twitter reaction. Like, put me there, because I remember Dan and Stephen A. when the LeBron stuff was going on saying they never wanted to be a part of a story like this again, predicting LeBron would leave Cleveland to come. Right? You remember that, and you were kind of in the middle of this one. So put us there. The relief that the reaction Jeff Darlington has when he hears that Tom Brady is not returning to the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, I know, like, it sounds so stupid to say it again, but like, it wasn't a surprise to me. Like, I knew that this was going to happen like this. I just, I've been close enough to the story for long enough to where the people really closest to Tom even weren't surprised by this. But to your point, you still have that moment when it does happen. It's like, okay, finally, now we can kind of put a stamp on this and gloat and then move on. So, but I do think people need to understand, like, there was a lot of narratives that were going around for the past 2 months. People just basically saying things that made sense to them that weren't necessarily true. Like the idea that, oh, Tom is just flirting with free agency and will ultimately just wind up going back to the Patriots and using this as leverage. That was just never the case. Tom was just done with the Patriots. He was over it. He wants a new challenge. And I know that seemingly overly simplifies it, but quite honestly, that's just the truth.
So what was it, though? Like, on the list of reasons that he's done, is it the discounts over the years? Is it the Belichick relationship? Like 1, 2, 3, if you had to list the reasons why he was done with the Patriots, what would they look like?
So I think it has its real peaks and valleys with Belichick the past few years. And, like, things got pretty ugly in August when it came to the negotiations for his most recent contract. And to the point where, we're talking about them coming back for a few $1 million and telling them to earn it in incentives and all that. And that's how he ended up winding up being like, you know what, fine, let's just do a 1-year deal and you guys aren't allowed to tag me. And I think that was probably, despite the fact that Brady and Belichick had got to a better place the year before that in 2018, once again, that contract negotiation sort of put them in this place where no longer, though, in 2019, did it feel necessarily to me like there was this crazy friction and tension. Instead, it actually felt like resignation. It felt more to me like this vibe of, let's just ride out this season, and then I'll go my way and you guys go your way. So by the end, honestly, it just felt like a stale marriage that maybe would kind of stay together for the purposes of comfort, not necessarily for all the reasons that they should stay together.
Jeff Darlington with us here on ESPN Radio. Jeff, you spent a lot of time, you still do, down here in Miami. You know the Dolphins organization very well. So when I tell you Byron Jones, Shaq Lawson, Kyle Van Noy, you have Brian Flores, who Brady is familiar with. Dolphins have 3 first-round picks, 6 picks in the top 70. Can you envision a scenario where they draft Tua and Tua gets to learn under Brady for a couple of years?
No, I don't think that's going to happen. Once upon a time, the Dolphins made the most sense for Tom Brady when this moment did occur. I could take you back 2 years ago when I felt like I would have probably put money on the idea of if I was a gambling man, that Brady would wind up in Miami. But it just didn't. The timing didn't really work out. The Dolphins chose kind of a different direction, and now we're here. The Dolphins have been monitoring it. They have had discussions. Tom has cast a very wide net when it comes to teams. I just think that at this point, it's a pretty uphill climb, as I understand it. So I would not anticipate Brady winding up with the Dolphins.
You think he knows now where he wants to be?
He's got it down pretty good, but I don't think he went into today. I don't think when he wrote that letter that he wrote it knowing where he was going to go, which is probably difficult for people to digest, that he would be willing to float just out there. But I will say this, I think it's going to be pretty quick, pretty concise, and not something that drags on for very long. That said, I wouldn't expect anything, for instance, today.
You got a betting favorite?
I think Vegas. I saw the Vegas odds yesterday. I think they were onto something, but I don't think. No, I mean, I'm not saying that it's going to that anything's going to happen. I think that the Bucs make a lot of sense. Let's just put it that way. That if you look across the board, all along the things that Brady have seemingly coveted have been a collaborative coach, a roster that doesn't need to be on the brink of a Super Bowl, but needs to be, well put together. Somewhere in good proximity to New York for personal reasons, and I think that he wouldn't mind playing in some warmer weather. So, I mean, those four things kind of lead me to think that the Bucs make a lot of sense.
Doesn't it seem clear that he's going to regret this?
I don't think that he maybe, but I don't think that he views it that way. I think he's okay with this. Like, for him, it's not life or death. For him, it's fun. And I think he's at the point in his career where he looks at it and says, I got 6 rings. Like, I'm comfortable with that. I'm 42. I still like playing football. I just don't necessarily want to do it in this rigid conformity where I spent the last 20 years. So maybe he does regret it, but I think that he looks at this like he'd rather regret it and try it than not try it at all. If that's a little cheesy, but I think it's true.
All right, so help us out here. We lost the bet to you. You reported that you would be shocked and stunned if Tom Brady returned to the Patriots. He's not returning to the Patriots, and the bet was that you would be allowed at some future date to shock or stun one of us once there's no longer any social distance between us. So,
yes.
Who are you choosing to shock and stun? Everyone's a little scared right now, but you get, yes, Chris has got his fingers crossed. Jeff Darlington, you have won the bet, so what is your choice? Who will you shock and stun on ESPN Ooze?
If we can clear this with legal, which I realize is an important distinction to make, I mean, look, I know what all of the people around you are thinking right now, and they think I'm probably scared to say it, but I'll say it. I'm stunning Dan Le Batard.
Oh, good choice. Good choice, Darlington.
I'm coming for the king, man.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Jeff.
It's finally not me.
Jeff, thank you for being on with us. I appreciate it, Jeff.
Thanks, Dan.
We've been telling you to support the people who support us. What a brutal loss for me. Chris Cody is dancing around. He's breakdancing in his house. Now we've got to find out what's it going to be. We're going to go to Human Resources and find out whether he could tase me, whether he can, whether stun gun me. We said cattle prod and, or just a stone cold stunner. It'll be one of those at a future date if we're ever allowed near each other again.
And it is time for Straight Talk. It is brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart.
What happened to you today at Starbucks? You ventured out to Starbucks. You sanitized your hands. You needed to get some coffee, and what happened?
This is yesterday. I'll be going back there today right after the show. I don't care. I need my Starbucks. But yesterday I went there after the show, Dan, and there were 4 or 5 other people, 2 of them employees, 3 other people getting coffee. And I had to sneeze. And so I was trying to hold in the sneeze for obvious reasons because everyone is so judgmental over the last couple of weeks, and I understand why. But I couldn't hold it in anymore. And so, I sneezed right into the way they're teaching us to sneeze. I sneezed right into my shoulder area, and everyone in the Starbucks stopped what they were doing, and they all stared at me. Everyone. All eyes on me. There were 10 eyes on me. I'm just wondering, have we arrived at a place where we can't sneeze in public anymore? Is that the deal?
Billy, why am I getting skeptical Billy face here? Is it just because Stugotz is even venturing outside and doesn't care about anybody else?
Well, when he started his story, he just said, I was at Starbucks yesterday, and the 5 dopes in there looked at me, and then later dropped in that he was sneezing. But yeah, why are you surprised that people are looking at you weird when you're sneezing when you shouldn't be there to begin with?
Well, I mean, they're there, too. I wasn't the only one there, and so I was there ordering coffee, and there were 3 other customers. They were also ordering coffee, so they ventured out to Starbucks, and I had to sneeze, meaning if one of them sneezed, I wouldn't have said a word to them. Please. I mean, I understand. We're all a little bit afraid. We're all a little bit scared, heightened everything, emotional. I get it. We're stuck inside our homes, but listen, I could go out in public and still let out a sneeze, and I should be able to do it without having 10 eyes on me. That's all I'm saying.
Chris, are you about to apologize for the yammering of your baby, or was that Roy's baby?
No, I think that's Roy's baby. That's Roy's baby.
Yeah, that was me.
Can we talk about this now that we're on the subject?
No, we can't talk about this.
We're in a group setting, and I've been texting. Look, I'm just going to say it. I've been texting Anthony privately. And I'm like, kids, very, very noisy. But there's a function here where you can kind of mute what's going on. I've been hearing Claire play the piano for an hour in my headset. I can't even hear the show or the guest or who's being interviewed or anything that's going on. I can't hear Dan half the time. I can hear the baby screaming. Right. I can hear the piano playing. I can hear all kinds of things going on that have nothing to do with work.
Chris, all right, well, I'm going to keep my mic on just to spite you. How about that?
Chris, well, that ruins the radio show. That really isn't a smart thing to do. Chris, how about you get your baby out the room so we can do a professional radio show? How about that? I slandered Chris's baby because your baby won't shut up. Your baby said, why is there a baby playing the piano during the show we're doing?
Whole Starbucks thing. How about people that are at Starbucks? If you're at Starbucks, you're not allowed to be worried about people sneezing.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the support. Right.
Mike picked a poor movie to watch last night because during, we're all watching a lot of movies at this point, and Outbreak is what he ended up choosing. Yeah. Outbreak was his choice.
It's currently the number 6 movie on Netflix right now, and the movie itself isn't bad. Donald Sutherland is a special type of unnecessary evil. Donald Sutherland, just the entire movie, just wants to kill people. That's his whole thing. Operation Clean Sweep. He's like, if you got a problem, the answer is Operation Clean Sweep. It's like, hey, man, I can't get this coffee maker to work. Let's drop a bomb on it. So Donald Sutherland is unnecessarily evil. But I venture a guess, and I'm sure there's a better answer out there, but I'm just lofting this into our game of poker. I have Outbreak as the single worst movie that's ever been made to age in the post-Me Too movement. Because this movie stars, it's a great ensemble cast at the time, Dustin Hoffman, who Google it, Morgan Freeman, who definitely Google it, Cuba Gooding Jr., Google it, and Kevin Spacey, you don't need to Google it.
Wow.
That is a full house.
Wow, that's the Mount Rushmore of Me Too right there.
I've got them suited, okay?
Good Lord.
Outbreak. We've got 4 people in this movie. It's an ensemble cast of 6. 4 of the 6 have been Me Too'd, and you don't really see, although Morgan Freeman's sort of just everyone admits, his voice is so good. Morgan Freeman, it's a little weird, there's a step-granddaughter situation, but your voice is good. No one else can do March of the Penguins. But, Outbreak, this, and I would love to know if there's any other nominees out there, I think, is the worst movie
no one can beat that.
Post-Me Too.
There's simply no way that anybody can beat those 4 people that you just threw at us. I just wish that we had a baby playing a piano in the background as the soundtrack to what it is that you were saying there. We will return and hear from Claire, the pianist, Claire, with Dianna Russini next. Chris, I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry.
That was Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart. That last segment, that was Straight Talk. If you missed any of our interviews, check them out on demand in the Dan Le Batard Show podcast, brought to you by Capital One. With Capital One, you can open a new checking or savings account with no fees or minimums. Welcome to Banking Reimagined. Capital One. What's in your wallet? Approval required. Capital One N.A. member FDIC. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Dianna Russini going to join us in just a second on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Here's your SportsCenter update. The Panthers are giving permission to Cam Newton to seek a trade. Carolina is interested in signing Teddy Bridgewater.
Oh,
Kansas, yep. Patriots, Cam Newton, you like that?
Where'd that come from?
One of the reporters here at ESPN.
I thought we were going to do Teddy Bear. I thought it was going to be Teddy the Chicago Bear. No, what happened to that? All right, we'll ask Dianna Russini in a second.
It was a Schefter tweet about the Panthers and Cam Newton and Teddy Bridgewater, since you asked. Dan, you like this? Kansas basketball coach Bill Self said that he would accept the national championship based on being the top right team in the polls. That's the only way to win it.
That's funny.
And finally, a population of lapwings is called a deceit. I was kind of asking. Sports Center is brought to you by Bolt 24. It's advanced hydration for athletes off the field with antioxidant vitamins A and C, electrolytes from watermelon and sea salt, and no artificial flavors or sweeteners. Bolt 24, all-day hydration for all-day athletes. For all the latest headlines and information, tune in to Sports Center on ESPN Radio all throughout the day.
We have not sorted out the technology here yet, so there is some echo. So I can't go to Billy right now and ask him what his armpit just smelled like as he made the move of going under the I can't ask him through the echo? All right, let's ask him. Billy, how is everything under there? Because you just did an 11:30 a.m. check under the arms, as you often do. How'd everything go under there?
So far, so good. I get accused of that a lot. I wasn't actually smelling, but now that you ask, yeah, things seem to be going all right there. Got some Old Spice swagger on.
Chris, what do you have for us on this subject? You've seen Billy do a lot of this during the show, right? Okay, very good. Dianna Russini joins us now on
Stop
ESPN.
Going to Chris, man. I'm telling you. Bad luck.
No, another screaming baby. Dianna Russini with us now on ESPN Radio. Always funny when the show jumps into news gathering mode. What Cam Newton, Teddy Bridgewater, what just happened there? Where'd that come from?
Why aren't you worried about how my armpits smell? They're fresh and clean. One of the hardest parts about free agency is you have to do one of those like really quick rinses because you don't want to miss a text message. So I've been hopping in, doing the quick 10-second soap, rub down and dry off quickly. And, almost every single season I miss something in that 10 seconds. So I didn't miss this one, though. And typical Stugotz giving Adam Schefter the information on a story I broke. But thanks, Stu, for having my back again.
There's a lot going on. I mean.
I know, but it's not hard. You read Twitter, there's my name. You read it, but nope, give it to Adam. It's been a wild morning. So the last few days, I've been hearing about Teddy Bridgewater and Carolina, which really shocked me. I kept going back and actually Googling Teddy's name of seeing maybe other insiders had reported it, and I'm like, this is weird. This is just a name I haven't even heard. But the source that gave it to me is ironclad. So I think right now we're just going through the process where Carolina is giving Cam the opportunity to seek this trade. They obviously made the decision. They want to move on from him. And you take a look at what Teddy Bridgewater could bring to Carolina if this deal does turn out to work out. You're talking about the same division. He obviously was with the Saints. He knows these opponents well. You've got Joe Brady calling the offense in Carolina. Joe Brady spent a year with Teddy in New Orleans. So it actually makes a lot of sense.
Dianna, what do you think the Panthers could get from a team that would want Cam Newton to be their quarterback?
That's the market for the trade right now is what I was doing before I just called in to try to get a sense of who wants Cam. Guys, the injury thing is real. In terms of when you think of Cam Newton and you talk to organizations about it, even just reaching out to other teams about what they think about Cam, everybody always just kind of says the same thing. It's like, yeah, if he's healthy and he's 2015. So, look, the worst case scenario, obviously, for Cam is going to be they cut him. I actually think that could happen, which would surprise me, wouldn't surprise me. But I'm not sure what they could get for him. I really don't know. And by the way, with this coronavirus situation and teams not being able to get physicals at their facilities with their team doctors. There's just like another layer to all this and in the value of these players.
We have somehow, I don't know how we did this, gone like an hour and a half without mentioning the name DeAndre Hopkins. Have you found anybody, has anyone explained what Houston and Bill O'Brien was doing in a way that makes sense to you? Is there anyone on the internet, anywhere, because I've not seen a reaction to a trade that's quite like this, where everyone's consensus is, what the hell did the Texans just do? If they're going to trade him, how do they not get more than that? How do they get a bad contract and a broken, disposable running back instead of something that's of value? Like, who's made a good argument on behalf of what the Texans did that makes sense to you, Dianna?
Okay, I'm so glad you asked me this. Because it's a two-part answer I have for you. One, we're all working from home right now, right? So life's a little different. And so the second this story broke yesterday, I immediately called Houston to try to get some answers. And I could not find my notebook anywhere. And the person was giving me a basic explanation of why there's value to this trade and what they were thinking. So the only thing I had in front of me was my W-2. Just sitting there, like my ESPN W-2. So I have my notes written about this trade on the back of this thing, which the W-2 is very sad looking to look at right now. But that being said, so the way it was explained to me was, by the way, I'm going to take a picture of this and send it to you guys when I hang up with you. The way they were looking at it, they got 2 second-round picks out of this. They know they don't have a first-round pick. This was a way for them to get more picks. But the bigger thing was, DeAndre Hopkins wanted a raise. They did not want to pay him more money because they did not think that he is that valuable for them. And when I pushed back on, well, are you kidding? The guy has over 100 catches. Deshaun Watson, he's the gotta-have-it guy for Deshaun Watson. When they need a guy to go to, it's DeAndre Hopkins. And the person that I trust a lot here in Houston pointed to the other teams that are dealing with high-paid wide receivers that got deals like Julio Jones in Atlanta, where it hurts their cap. And when I pushed back also on the fact that, well, this is the kind of player that can get you to the playoffs, they said, well, why don't you take a look at DeAndre Hopkins' numbers in the playoffs? And that will tell you where we see value in him. But Dan, that being said, I still think the issue here is always going to be you have Bill O'Brien, the football head coach, and you have Bill O'Brien, the GM. And I don't truly believe that the football coach loved this deal, but I do know that the GM did. The GM side of this loved this and thinks that this is smart.
Okay, because I'm not hearing anyone make that argument. I don't know what David Johnson's playoff numbers are, but that's also a bad contract. Like everyone is talking about that contract as if it's not the kind of contract that you give to a running back, and they took all the money on. I haven't heard anybody put together an argument, Diana. I understand you're going to a Houston source on what it is that they're doing. That I understand trading DeAndre Hopkins if you wanted to trade DeAndre Hopkins. What I don't understand is Stephon Diggs getting you more, Amari Cooper getting you more coming back. Like, these aren't receivers who are as good as DeAndre Hopkins.
And they're not. And the way I think Houston is, I know the way Houston is looking at this is they believe that this draft class coming up has receivers that they can grow and build and make great. And they obviously feel comfortable enough with Deshaun Watson and his ability to make the guys around him great and spectacular to believe that they could deal one of the best receivers in the game. And look, they're getting crushed today, as we all are. I hear what you're saying, and I'm not taking their side, by the way. I just talked to them, and this is how they're looking at it. It definitely didn't go all the way down the line of other coaches, by the way, of them agreeing with it. There's definitely reaction from everyone, even guys on the team, obviously, of like, what the heck? I had somebody in the building yesterday text me, if it wasn't for the coronavirus, people would be showing up to the facility banging down the door. But, there's no way we can say if this trade was good yet until we see next year and see what happens.
Diana, you did such a great job covering the XFL. Those players from that league are free to sign with NFL teams right now. Are there any players garnering NFL interest?
Yeah, no, Mike, thanks for that question, because I'm talking to agents right now. So they're trying to figure out the rules still. From the last time I checked with an agent of a quarterback, who I definitely think is going to have a great market. And I guess they're still ironing out how this works right now. But obviously the name that you guys have seen everywhere, PJ Walker's getting tons of attention from different teams as a backup, from Seattle to Houston even. I'm interested to see where he'll land, but I still think this is a piece that they're trying to figure out. And this will probably start to come together later tomorrow, maybe even Thursday, when we start hearing XFL players getting some action.
Dianna, go ahead and send us that W-2. We want to see protect some of those numbers. I don't think you want some people to see some of the numbers.
You're going to send those to me?
You're the worst. How could you possibly give her story to Adam Schefter? Why? She's your friend.
Listen, she is my friend. I love her dearly. I have 19 windows open. I'm trying to do video chats with everyone on the show. There's Brady's leaving. There's a lot going on here. Dianna, I'm sorry. I love you.
Dianna, thank you for being on with us. We appreciate it.
It's fine. Thanks for working, guys. I appreciate you keeping me entertained.
Thank you. We've got to figure out the sound issues and the video issues around here.
Time to see who got it done. Brought to you by Grainger. Reds pitcher Trevor Bauer staged a Sandlot wiffle ball game on Saturday with proceeds going to support MLB staff members who are currently out of work due to games suspended because of the coronavirus. Bauer also set up a GoFundMe account with a target of $1 million. Delivering the products that keep your facility running is what Grainger does best. They've been doing it for 90 years. Visit Grainger.com for whatever you need, whenever you need it. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Yesterday, something pretty amazing happened, and I wonder how many people took inventory of how quickly it happened, because, Stugotz, we're always talking about the pressure that these guys in football feel to get on the field, whether they're concussed or anything else, because their livelihoods are at stake. And I found it fascinating that you have a situation in that sport where Ryan Tannehill was available to everybody last year, and he could only get a backup job in a place where he looked and he said to himself, maybe I can be better than Mariota. He couldn't beat out Mariota before the season. They start 2-2, and they're still not playing him ahead of Mariota. Vrabel at this point doesn't know to play Tannehill ahead of Mariota. In 2 games, after starting the season scoring 43 points against Cleveland, in 2 games, Marcus Mariota lost a starting job in the NFL, and Ryan Tannehill cashed it in for $100 million. That happened in 2 damn games, Stugotz, where, and who knows how healthy Mariota is in either of those games, right? Because he's always a little bit broken, and who knows what it is that the reason is that he scored 0 points in his last game. They get beat 16-0 at Denver, and then the next thing you know, it's gone, and Mariota's time in Tennessee is gone, and next thing you know, he can't get a starting. He's in Tannehill's position now, where he's choosing the place, hey, maybe I can go there and I can beat out Derek Carr.
And Tannehill arrives in a position, as you mentioned, where he's starting, where the Titans are saying no to Tom Brady because they love what Ryan Tannehill did for them last year during the regular season. And I also was reading some interesting stats with Tannehill, that Derrick Henry, the running game really started to open up once Tannehill became the quarterback. But, and that's where Derrick Henry had the bulk of his yards when Tannehill was behind center. But Dan, that's funny. It's the NFL, right? Where the door closes for one guy, and Ryan Tannehill, who it looked like, who was the backup, he lands a $120 million contract.
But they were 2-2, and Vrabel wasn't going to make that move. And if they win if they don't start 2-4, maybe if they start 3-3, Tannehill is still sitting on the bench. And to parlay that over Mariota can't get back on the field and Mariota can't get a starting job, when going into last season, any one of us would have argued coin flip the difference between Mariota and Tannehill. Any one of us would have said, what difference does it make who starts for the Tennessee Titans? They're both kind of the same quarterback. They're the Spider-Man meme pointing at each other. Like, what's the difference between them? The difference between them today, after 2 damn games, is one of them gets $91 million guaranteed, and the other one is starting his career all over again, going to Las Vegas and, hoping that Derek Carr doesn't play well.
And it's crazy because the game before those 2 losses where Mariota played awful, he was just dreadful against 2 good defenses, the Bills and the Broncos. He had 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. I mean, he was 18 to 27 against the Falcons for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So it turned that.
That's how quick. That's how
Yes.
quick it happens.
Yes.
It's crazy. Can you tell me whether you have found anywhere on the internet? I understand that Dianna Russini talked to somebody with the Texans, but have you found anywhere on the internet where people are arguing that the Texans did something other than something extraordinarily dumb? Like, how often do you get a trade that looks like that where everyone is saying the same damn thing? I haven't found anybody who's arguing on behalf of the Texans.
I guess the only argument is Bill O'Brien, they didn't get along. He wasn't going to give him a long-term deal, and this is supposed to be the best wide receiver draft we've seen in like the last 15 years in the NFL. So maybe he gets a running back, David Johnson, that he could try to get back to glory, get him back to, when David Johnson was the number 1 pick in all fantasy leagues, and could still find a wide receiver for a lot less money in the upcoming draft. That's the only argument I've heard. But
how do you not get more than that? How do you not get more than that for one of the any one of us would argue that's a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, whether you get along with him or not? Like, how do you not? It's really puzzling. It's rare for everyone to have the same opinion on something. Ron McGill talks animals next.